Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.patreon.com/The BPD Show.
Welcome, ladies, gentlemen, and gender nonconforming individuals to another episode of the Benjamin Dixon Show. I am, of course, your host, Benjamin Dixon. Today is Thursday, September 5th, 2024. Thank you so much for joining me. I have a lot to share with you. And first, to the public audience, this is my first podcast back publicly in some time. So hello and welcome to all of you. It's been a long time. I shouldn't have left you without a dope beat to step to. Sorry, I digress. Let me come back to politics. But I need to weigh in on a couple of things here, and I have a new segment that I want to toss your way. It's probably going to be a series of YouTube shorts dealing with the real Christians of MAGA. I think it's really worth looking into the people who are screaming the loudest about their religion. My religion, I'm a Christian. I'm a pastor. But the people who are screaming the loudest on social media about how important their Christian values are and how they should impose those Christian values on the rest of the world. I mean, they've left a pretty big evidence trail that they're anything but good people. Notice I'm not saying that they're not actual Christians. I don't believe in the no true Scotsman fallacy. They're Christian. Yeah. I mean, God can save anybody, right? They're Christians, but they are absolutely some of the most disgusting people on the face of the planet, these MAGA Christians. So stay tuned for that. I have to weigh in on so many other stories that are going on with the breaking news about the Department of Justice unsealing an indictment that implicates Tenet Media. Tenet Media is a media company out of Tennessee that has been paying Tim Pool, Benny Johnson, Lauren Southern. I even think your boy Dave Rubin is on this list. We know for a fact that they have been paying them millions of dollars. And that money that has been paying them was funneled through Russia, in which, makes it pretty clear why they are such advocates for Vladimir Putin's policies, particularly as it pertains to American politics, yes, but our foreign policy and Ukraine. We'll discuss that. But I have to start somewhere rather ridiculous, if you would allow me. Because Labor Day has come and gone, and I don't want it to get too far down the rabbit hole without me addressing this really ridiculous moment for MAGA, where they are insisting that Kamala Harris is not an authentic person because of what MAGA said sounds like a Southern accent. They're accusing Kamala of putting on a Southern accent, which is, of course, just part and parcel of their attempt to make her seem inauthentic, to make her seem like she's not authentically black, which is one of their number one. I think that's their top strategy at this point, is to try to paint Kamala Harris as if she is not authentically black. Let's begin with this clip of White House correspondent for Fox News, Peter Doocy, as he asked White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre about this alleged Southern accent.
A different topic. Since when does the vice president have what sounds like a Southern accent?
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Well,
I mean, this is...
She was talking about unions in Detroit using one tone of voice.
Is this something that
same
you think...
line.
Okay, Peter.
That she used the same line in Pittsburgh, and it sounded like she at least had some kind of a Southern drawl.
Do you hear the question that you're... do you think Americans seriously think that this is an important question? They care... You know what they care about? They care about the economy. They care about lowering costs. They care about health care. That's what Americans care about.
So
that's what they want to hear.
This is something...
They care about, your colleague just asked me about what basically we talked about, went back and forth about democracy and freedom. That's what they care about. I'm not even going to entertain some question about the president. It's just hearing it sounds so ridiculous.
Well, but hearing it is...
The question, I'm talking about the questions is just insane.
Is that how she talks in meetings here?
I'm just, Peter, we're moving on. We're so moving around.
Fox News White House correspondent Peter Doocy gets absolutely humiliated in this clip because he asked a most ridiculous question. I mean, absolutely brain dead, mind-numbingly stupid question about some accent that they believed and they accused Kamala Harris of contriving and making up. Now, this entire clip, this entire conversation is so mind-numbingly stupid. I think it's reflective of how just dumb American politics has become in the age of MAGA and in the age of conservative right-wing echo chambers. But if I could pull a diamond out of this pile of feces, I would really want to show you that this exposes what MAGA really is. Before I get to that, though, I want you to hear what these people think is a Southern accent from Kamala Harris.
You better thank a union member for sick leave. You better thank a union member for paid leave. You better thank a union member for vacation time. Because what we know.
Now, if any of you are from the South like I am, you know that there's nothing Southern about what she just said. The only thing that Kamala Harris did in that clip was to take the word better. And instead of using a hard ER like so many Republicans like to use at the end of words that they use, she put a slight AR. She didn't even put an A. Like, she didn't say better. She said better.
You better thank a union member for sick leave. You better thank a union member for paid leave.
It's barely, it's not a Southern accent. Whatever it is, whatever it was, it most certainly was not a Southern accent. I speak with a very deep Southern accent that I work very hard at kind of, trying to ameliorate. Because if I spoke to you the way I really speak, the way I grew up in the South, you would not understand 90% of what I say. You could not understand 90% of what I say growing up as a black man in Mississippi. You can't. So this story has become the number one thing talked about. It is still trending on Twitter. Kamala Harris, 2 days later, it's still trending about Kamala Harris's Southern accent. This is the strategy, if there is one. If there's a strategy in the stupidity here, it is an attempt to paint Kamala Harris as inauthentic and paint Kamala Harris as not authentically black more than anything else. Because one of their effective strategies has been to divide the black community, not completely, but a portion of the black community who feels like because Kamala Harris is not a descendant of enslaved Africans in America, and that because she has a partial Indian heritage, that she's not authentically black. Now, never mind the fact that Kamala Harris grew up in America during desegregation and was bused from her predominantly black neighborhood to a not so black neighborhood to go to school so that they could facilitate the integration, the continued integration of school through the busing programs of the 60s. Never mind that is like the quintessential story that every black person who was born in that era came through. Never mind the fact that she went to an HBCU, Howard University, pledged in Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, one of the Divine Nine, this historically black sorority. Never mind all of those things, working her way up from a middle class environment. Fox News and conservatives want to continue to try to paint her as inauthentically black. Why do they want to do that? Because they understand the power and the significance of the black vote, especially when we as a black community coalesce around a candidate to the tune of 90-some%. They don't stand a chance if Kamala Harris reaches nearly those numbers, along with all of the other communities that Kamala Harris is really galvanizing. The movement around Kamala is really significant because it's more diverse than any other coalition that we've seen in history. And so conservatives, MAGA, they have one strategy: to attack her in the black community, to weaken her specifically amongst black men. And how do they do that? They do that by saying, oh, she's not authentically black. And so while this clip and this question and this entire period of American politics is just mind-numbingly dumb, there's a strategy in the ignorance. They are being intentionally obtuse because they understand that this most ignorant position and question and proposition that Kamala is not authentically black, and look, she's faking a southern accent. They really believe that and their polling shows that this is an effective way to alienate Kamala Harris from a small subset of the black community. And if they can pick off just enough black people to say, oh, either I don't want anything to do with her because she's not authentically black, or to say I'm going to instead vote for Donald Trump, then that is their only pathway to victory. If there's anything that happened in that clip, you see Kamala Harris taking and borrowing from the black preacher tradition, the rhythmic pattern, the repetition to make a point stick. And that point stuck quite well. Whether or not you're in a union, you better thank a union.
You better thank a union member for sick leave. You better thank a union member for paid leave. You better thank a union member for vacation time.
You better thank a union, because that's why you can get full-time pay with only 40 hours a week instead of 70 hours a week. You better thank a union for any number of the benefits that you got, whether or not you were ever part of a union. That is the repetition and the pattern of the black preaching tradition that politicians have been borrowing for years. But at the end of the day, we're dealing with very ignorant times that are being precipitated by very intentionally ignorant and obtuse people who see a strategy in dumbing down American politics such that a ridiculous question can be asked by a White House correspondent of the White House press secretary. And the press secretary did exactly what should be done in every instance like this. Next question. We'll be back with more of the Benjamin Dixon Show right after this.
I'm in sync with the earth. 10 toes deep, flower child from the turf. I never switch sides, like even when I die, I'ma ride for the squad. Lot of ties in the hearse. I've been on the vibe, kinda hard to describe. I'm in between, I'm good and it's fine, but I'm tired of the grind. Then I come alive in the night to realize I'm in the middle of the time of my life. I never so packed for the stack, never lied on the rap. Got a bag from the way that I write it. Queen looking Tyson.
Welcome back to the Benjamin Dixon Show. Visit us online at thebenjamindixonshow.com.
The American people are entitled to know when a foreign power is attempting to exploit our country's free exchange of ideas in order to send around its own propaganda. In the wake of Russia's brutal invasion of Ukraine, RT's editor-in-chief said the company had built, quote, an entire empire of covert projects designed to shape public opinion in Western audiences. We allege that as part of that effort, RT and its employees, including the defendants, implemented a nearly $10 million scheme to fund and direct a Tennessee-based company to publish and disseminate content deemed favorable to the Russian government. To implement this scheme, the defendants directed the company to contract with U.S.-based social media influencers to share this content on their platforms. The subject matter and content of many of the videos published by the company were often consistent with Russia's interest in amplifying U.S. domestic divisions in order to weaken U.S. opposition to core Russian interests, particularly its ongoing war in Ukraine. The company never disclosed to the influencers or to their millions of followers its ties to RT and the Russian government. Instead, the defendants and the company claimed that the company was sponsored by a private investor. But that private investor was a fictitious persona. The charges unsealed this morning do not represent the end of the investigation. It remains active and ongoing.
So it turns out that some of the biggest names in right-wing media, Benny Johnson, Tim Pool, Lauren Southern, just to name a few, were all licensing content to a shell company that essentially was set up by Russian agents to influence American politics and America's foreign policy as it pertains to Ukraine. Now, in that clip, you heard Attorney General Merrick Garland making it clear that the Department of Justice is charging 2 employees of Russia Today with violating the Foreign Agents Registration Act, saying that they participated in a, quote, $10 million scheme to create and distribute content to U.S. audiences with hidden Russian government messaging. Now, while the media company that has been identified, Tenet Media, is not named in the indictment, there's a trail of evidence that shows that this is exactly the company that the Department of Justice is implicating, as well as Tim Pool and Benny Johnson came out directly and addressed it with their own statements on social media, saying that they were victims, stating that they had no idea that the company that they were taking $100,000 per episode from was funneling money to them from Russia, despite the fact that their content was explicitly in favor of Russia. Listen to this clip of Tim Pool, who received $100,000 per episode to do this work. Listen to his commentary on the Ukraine war.
This is psychotic. Ukraine is the enemy of this country. Ukraine is our enemy, being funded by the Democrats. I will stress this again. One of the greatest enemies of our nation right now is Ukraine. They are expanding this war. Now, don't get me wrong. I know you've got criminal elements of the U.S. government pushing them and guiding them and telling them what to do. Ukraine is now accused, a German warrant issued for blowing up the Nord Stream pipeline, triggering this conflict. Ukraine is the greatest threat to this nation and to the world. We should rescind all funding and financing, pull out all military support, and we should apologize to Russia.
There has been a definitive shift in Republican orthodoxy and Republican policy as it pertains to Russia. Many years ago, it would be unthinkable for anyone in this nation to usurp the foreign policy that has been set by the president of the United States and to do so on behalf of Vladimir Putin, specifically Russia, generally speaking. But now we have influencers, media commentators, so-called journalists who have directly aligned themselves with Vladimir Putin. And it would be one thing if their arguments were genuine, but they are extremely vapid and disingenuous. They are arguments, and they have been arguments since the invasion of Ukraine. These right-wing influencers, who now we know have been receiving hundreds of thousands of dollars per episode, they have been forwarding some of the most ridiculous arguments in favor of Russia's position, essentially saying that the thing to do is to lay down your arms and to allow Vladimir Putin to just have his way with you.
What's your opinion on the solution to the Ukraine war?
Cut off the money. It's the only way you get them to the table. Right? As long as, we're literally creating the oligarch class of billionaire in Ukraine with whatever's being siphoned off, whether it's Zelensky, whether it's this, while they send young men to die as cannon fodder on the front lines because they couldn't care less. My father would have been like, hey, you got like one more month of this, and if you're not at the table, it's done. Yep. Guess what? Zelensky wouldn't have a chance if we shut it down. So he'd come to the table, and they'd come up with something.
Absolutely.
And now we know with certainty that many of these individuals were being paid handsomely to hold these opinions. And whether or not they held these opinions genuinely, they were being paid to disseminate these opinions to their millions of followers across the United States of America. And it wasn't just the issue of the Russian invasion of Ukraine. It's also the issue of all of the divisive politics, the wedge issues, the issues that have been continuously destabilizing the United States of America, destabilizing our ability to maintain a healthy and functioning democracy. Vladimir Putin has had a vested interest in making sure that there are divisive voices that are destroying our democracy. We saw this exact pattern in the lead up to the invasion of Ukraine. There were right-wing influencers in Ukraine who were making money peddling Russian propaganda. And as soon as the invasion happened, those voices, like many others, got up and left and took refuge in Russia while their nation was being invaded by Vladimir Putin. This is the same MO that Vladimir Putin has been using for many, many years. We simply cannot overstate how damning this information is and how very clear it is that we have a party and an entire faction here in the United States that has been co-opted by Russia, by Vladimir Putin, for the purposes of forwarding Vladimir Putin's agenda at the expense of the United States of America. You know, and I wonder if any of the people who listen to these guys are going to really take stock, take an assessment of what they believe as a result of what their favorite YouTuber has been paid a ridiculous amount of money to tell them. Right? Do you think that these people who listen to Tim Pool are all of a sudden going to pause and reflect and say, he was being paid $100,000 an episode to tell me this. Maybe I should reconsider what I believe. No, what we're seeing is the same thing that we see all the time when Republicans, when MAGA gets confronted with reality, with truth, with information, they don't change. They double down because I guess it's too embarrassing for them to admit that they have been duped, that they have been suckers for Vladimir Putin paid propagandists. Vladimir Putin has invested wisely and it has paid off. Because now you have half of the United States of America, or at least those who participate in politics, who think that Ukraine is the enemy, who think that Vladimir Putin is their savior, who align first and foremost, not America first, but Putin first. Millions of people who hang on these idiots' every words, now recycling all of those same talking points. And they're saying it now on social media. These followers are doggedly attacking anyone who holds an opinion differently than what Vladimir Putin has paid their favorite YouTuber to tell them.
Shawty so soon in my presence. The world going through it outside, they unruly, but I keep it cool, they can't press me. I keep it pure with intention. They see what I'm on, ain't no vixen. I might slide through with that top down. I keep it tuned with a high power. Put it on me, I'm blessed. Blessed. Big bag, manifest the sky, no stress. Keep no evil around me, can't ground me. I built it since when I had less. No hex on, God can't pop. Look at how far we progress. Whatever we do.
Welcome back to the Benjamin Dixon Show. Visit us online at thebenjamindixonshow.com.
Donald Trump has admitted now twice that he lost the election and MAGA is melting down.
He's admitting, he says, I lost by a whisker. So what was the point? Like, what's the point of any of it? You lost in 2020? Seriously? I mean, what are we even doing anymore? Then you're a loser. Then you're a loser. You just lost. Then you lost to Joe Biden. You deserve to be charged. If he admits that he lost, then that actually vindicates the DOJ charge against him. Because the charge is that he knew he lost, but he lied to defraud the people. That's the DOJ's charge.
I absolutely love this clip from Nick Fuentes. He's a disgusting person, but this clip is absolutely spectacular because you see the torture in his soul. He is absolutely devastated that Donald Trump is no longer sustaining the big lie. At first, when I watched it, I thought, maybe Nick is coming to the terms with the fact that he's been lied to. But I thought about it just a little bit longer. Nick is smart enough to have known that this was a lie all of the time. And he's only really frustrated because Donald Trump can no longer sustain the lie.
He beat us by a whisker. Lost by a whisker.
So why did we do Stop the Steal? Why did anyone go to January 6th? Why is anyone sitting in jail?
Absolutely, Nick. What is the point? Why did all of those hundreds of people have to go to jail for Donald Trump's lie? Why did Ashley Babbitt have to die for Donald Trump's lie? Why did all of those Capitol police officers have to get assaulted because of Donald Trump's lie? And what Nick is essentially saying is that if Donald Trump can't sustain the lie, then he might as well go to jail. Yes, he should. And in fact, from the looks of things today, that might actually be the case. Donald Trump perpetuated one of the greatest lies in American history to the point of destabilizing our democracy, nearly to the point of no return. And it's only because Donald Trump is getting so old and he has had probably COVID so many times that the cognitive decline has accelerated. He can no longer sustain the lies. And so he's inadvertently telling the truth. Yes, Donald Trump lost the 2020 election. And there's so many people who have wrapped their entire personas, their personalities, their careers, their political campaigns around supporting Donald Trump's lie, so that now when the head honcho in charge of the lie can no longer sustain it, yeah, it makes all of MAGA look like morons. It makes every single one of these people who has nearly destroyed the American democratic experiment on behalf of the lie, it makes you look as foolish as you really are.
Why did anything bad happen to anybody? Why did everyone get censored? Why is everything bad that has happened to the people that are involved, why did that need to happen if you're just going to walk it all back and say, oh, I lost? Well, it would have been good to know that.
And the fact that Donald Trump, out of all the people who are actually in jail because of Donald Trump has not spent a day in jail yet as a result of the big lie. That is the salt in the open wound. Every January 6th defendant and everyone that's incarcerated currently, you have to absolutely be so disgusted with the fact that your life has been completely usurped because you chose to follow the lie of your leader who can't even sustain the lie anymore.
10 or 12 million votes more than that, more than anybody had ever got. We got the most votes of anybody, of any sitting president in history. And he beat us by a whisker.
I don't think Donald Trump is all of a sudden having a change of heart. I don't think that he's, like a lot of people when they get up in age, they try to start changing their life and not doing what they did when they were younger, even though this was just 4 years ago. No, Donald Trump's brain is completely cooked. He should never have been anywhere near the White House, but he certainly cannot go back to the White House, not only because he's a traitor to the United States of America, but also because he's not even capable of sustaining his primary lie, the lie that gives life to the entirety of the MAGA movement, the lie that gives him the justification for every single one of his fundraising emails, for every single one of the individuals who sacrificed their careers for him. He had to sustain this lie all the way until he got back in power, and his brain is just like, nope, I give up.
Lost by a whisker.
This is the thing about lies, right? This is absolutely the truth about lies. It takes a lot more energy to sustain a lie than it does the truth. If you tell the truth, you don't have to constantly keep track of all your lies. And now Donald Trump's brain can't keep track of the lies. And it is absolutely spectacular because of how much damage this moron has done to this nation as a result of his ego. Donald Trump's ego, Donald Trump's pride, is the very thing that was big enough to nearly destroy this country. And in fact, we're not out of the woods yet. There's still a possibility that this convicted felon can get reelected. And despite getting convicted, despite getting sentenced, he could still become the next president of the United States, which is not only a problem because of him, but it's absolutely a problem because of everyone who has surrounded him. Every person that has repeated the big lie, every person that has built their entire campaign and their political careers off the big lie. All of these people know that he's lying, and they have decided to get in lockstep with the lie because it advances their careers. It advances their finances. It makes them money to sustain the big lie. And now the head honcho can't even sustain it anymore.
Lost by a whisker.
Here's what's going to happen. There's going to be very few people with, and I can't believe I'm even saying this, right? I don't really think that Nick Fuentes has integrity, right? But at least he's consistent in his argumentation. right? He's consistent here. He's saying that because Trump can't sustain the lie, it has really nullified. It has made void. It has made every effort that they have given him over the last 4 years. It's made it all in vain. But MAGA is so insidious. The true spirit of MAGA is so downright just repugnant that they will look at Donald Trump admitting that he lost and they will ignore that. And the rest of MAGA will just continue marching to the drumbeat of the big lie, even though Donald Trump has confessed that he lost to Joe Biden.
10 or 12 million votes more than that, more than anybody had ever got. We got the most votes of anybody, of any sitting president in history. And he beat us by a whisker. Lost by a whisker.
Folks, that's all the time I have for the public show. Patrons, please stay tuned. If you want to get access to the first look at my new series, The Real Christians of MAGA, go to patreon.com/The BPD Show. Otherwise, I'll see you next time.
The Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.patreon.com/The BPD Show and support The Benjamin Dixon Show. If you like this episode, be sure to share, like, and subscribe.